Tonight, we're witnessing a seismic shift in global power that mainstream media refuses to cover. China has just banned critical minerals essential for U.S. military technology. Russia is conducting proactive hypersonic missile tests in the Mediterranean. As America pours billions into foreign conflicts, our enemies are forming new alliances. Tucker Carlson is back in Moscow asking the questions that no one else dares to ask. Are we headed towards an unprecedented conflict? The pieces are moving on the global chessboard, and for the first time, we can see their endgame. And the question is it already too late? As global tensions rise and winter approaches, Americans face a different kind of Cold War at home. Energy prices are skyrocketing, forcing families to choose between heating and eating. That's why I trust this revolutionary portable heater. Just plug it in. It transforms any room into a cozy sanctuary without breaking the bank. While politicians play global chess games, you can stay warm and comfortable for up to 60% less. Order now at staywarmnow.com and get free shipping plus exclusive bonuses. Don't let global chaos leave you in the cold. Now, this just broke as we were going to take this segment live. A massive telecom hack has occurred. Chaos. U.S. says use WhatsApp and pray. Chinese hackers just pulled off a heist on AT&T, Verizon, and other telecom giants, snooping on live calls, call records, and even top secret systems in D.C. The U.S. government's advice: use encrypted apps like Signal or Signal or WhatsApp. That will, of course, stop the hackers who just broke entire telecom networks. Officials admit fixing the disaster will take time, so for now they're basically saying text like your life depends on it and hope for the best. This is the breaking news that just happened.
New details tonight on what's being called one of the worst cyber hacks in history, with federal officials revealing they've been investigating China for months after hackers compromised the networks of multiple U.S. communications companies and may still be lurking in the systems of at least some of them. FBI and federal cybersecurity officials say these Chinese government-affiliated hackers managed to steal records, intercept some voice calls, even penetrate the wiretap system used by the Justice Department to investigate people suspected of crimes or spying. Officials say most of the private communication intercepted by the hackers involved people affiliated with the government or politics, but the access to companies like Verizon and AT&T means the communications of nearly every American are vulnerable. And now a new warning to be careful what you communicate and use encrypted communication when you can. Think Signal, WhatsApp, or iMessage. Those blue text bubbles a sign what you're saying is protected. Is a warning like that overkill in your view?
I think it's a good standard hygiene practice for operating in today's modern technology environment. You have to be really mindful, again, about the technology you're using, how it's secured.
The culprits, officials say, a group called Salt Typhoon, the same collective allegedly behind the hacks of the Trump and Harris campaigns before the election. Officials even now still trying to understand the scale, scope, and timeline of this hack.
We have to understand that the digital connectivity that we all rely on, that we benefit from economically, can also be used against us.
For its part, China has denied past hacking accusations and last month accused the U.S. of trying to spread disinformation, despite what U.S. officials see as a clear connection. Lester, new details.
Wow. So that's a direct assault from China. Meanwhile, looking at what happened in the Georgian pro-EU protesters using do-it-yourself weapons. I mean, this looks like an episode of Johnny Knoxville's Jackass. I mean, this is what's happening in Georgia. I mean, it's out of control. My friend Adam, he replied to my post when I mentioned this was like Jackass. He says they're protesting Russian colonialism and a stolen election the same way the people of Hong Kong protested against colonialism by the CCP. If you were in their shoes, would you be so brave to stand up to a genocidal war maniac like Putin? Well, we have this too. Yes, China now banning export of precious metals. which are used in military and technology applications. So we're seeing an amplification of international threats right now focused on the United States. We've got the hack. We've got precious minerals that the military requires, basically choking us. What are they planning? Now, we've got this too. Look at this. This was back in February, because we're going to talk about what this new Ukrainian funding is going to be. A former head officer, regional Ukrainian military recruitment, busted with $1 million in shoeboxes. Look at this. Just pulling cash, U.S. cash. Now, is this part of our funding that has gone to Ukraine? I don't know. Who really knows? But we know that billions of dollars have gone to Ukraine over and over again. And this is a head officer of the regional military recruitment for Ukraine. Busted with $1 million in shoeboxes. And remember this, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm 100% against this, and so are most Americans. U.S. funding of the Ukraine government at $1 billion a month to keep it running and funding most of the war by providing weapons, ammo, and equipment. The U.S. should be negotiating peace and not fueling war. Now, I want to be clear about my position on this. I'm a non-interventionist. That's my stance. We should not be giving money to any countries at all. We should not be playing proxy wars for anything, for anybody. So don't say I'm a Putin apologist or I'm a, whatever. I'm against it all. 5 days ago, BRICS News, U.S. President-elect Trump is considering lifting sanctions on Russia for a peace deal with Ukraine. So President Trump's already working in the background. Now, talking about the funding in Ukraine, here's a conversation with Tucker Carlson and Don Jr.
Actually, that I'm aware of. Well, can I ask you a question? So you do travel and speak to audiences more than anybody, more than anybody, actually, that I'm aware of, and you always have. In Washington, where I spent my whole life until recently, I don't think there are 4 Republicans in the House who've asked the questions about Ukraine than you have. Do you ever meet an audience that is like, no, we really need to keep going funding this war in Ukraine?
So I do this in a lot of the speeches. I'll do it right here because I haven't done it in a while. And I've had 2 responses. And so let's say over the last year, I've spoken to 50, 60,000 people probably, right? Opening up for DJT, a rally, a group of 300 people here, that may be 10,000, 5,000. This is 10,000, whatever it is. And I do it. Show of hands, raise your hand if Ukraine is a top 10 priority for you in your life. Top 10. And I'll do it. Like, if it is, I'll give you the mic. How about a top 3? It doesn't exist. I found 2 people. 2 people of now, let's call it 65,000 people that I speak to weekly. It was not top 3, but it was top 10. First guy, sir, why? I am from Kiev, Ukraine. I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to give you a pass. And the other was a guy that's like a Beltway warmonger. I was like, so you're on the board of Raytheon or something like that? He was like, well, no, not exactly. I was like, Northrop Grumman? He just walks away. And yet, I get the calls. By the way, what's nice about me, I'm not a politician, so I'll call out both sides. I get the calls from Republicans. Hey, Don, can you not go so tough on the Ukraine? Because, some of that money is getting funneled back to a missile maker. And I was like, wait. I'm all about American businesses. Like, our family's done that before we got sued to, oblivion. Like, we've done this. I get it. I want to support American business. Not if it's just for abject death for no reason around the world. Like, I'm not there to support American business in genocide. And I talk to these guys. I'm like, you're making trillion-dollar decisions. Have you surveyed your constituents? And they're like, well, no, but I'm sure they took 6 figures from Raytheon, and so therefore, they're on the team. They should get sponsorship things. Whose payroll are you on? Because it's shocking to me that a guy like me, who grew up on the 70th floor of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Again, I don't forget that. I don't pretend it didn't happen. I'm like very self-aware that way. But it's like, how do I know this and you don't? Like, you live there.
Exactly.
You live amongst these people. You literally chose to represent your district. I was there last week and you have no idea what they actually stand for. And it's disgusting.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Trump said it best. I want everybody to stop dying. That needs to be the message being sent. But here you have Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro with Zelensky celebrating by signing bombs, missiles that will be dropped. It's just disgusting. It has to stop. Kari Lake posting this 3 days ago. Americans are well within our rights to demand we stop funding the Ukraine-Russia conflict with no end in sight while the rest of our allies refuse to pay their fair share. This is especially true when we learn that money has been potentially laundered to Democrat politicians instead of helping people.
But how are we trying to stop that?
Yeah, but I think we should also remember who the really bad guys here are, and it's Vladimir Putin and his Russian barbaric invaders, because
So this is on Piers Morgan, Kari Lake on Piers Morgan.
They did what they did, and they didn't need to do that, and they did it. And I grew up in a big military family, and the idea that a Russian dictator could just invade European countries and help himself to their land would have been completely unthinkable that we would want to accept that.
But how are we trying to stop that? We're just pouring more money into the war instead of trying to stop it.
To which I would say, what price? Freedom and democracy.
Well, $260 billion, and now we're hearing that as much as half of that may have been laundered through Ukrainian officials, and much of it coming back into Democrat politicians.
But what would you have said? All right, but Carrie, what would you have said in 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland?
Oh, here we go.
No, I'm talking about this war right now.
Well, I'm saying it's a similar thing. You got a total nutcase in charge of invading hordes, invading a sovereign European democratic country.
False equivalency.
America is bearing the brunt of the funding of this, and I don't see Europe clamoring to throw their treasure in like America.
Britain has actually given more than any other European country. But I take your point. I do think
not more than America.
Well, I do. No, of course. Yeah, but
oh man, Piers Morgan. These neocons, man, they just want endless war. Janine Johnson says, Hunter's pardon now 100% proves Ukraine war funding has always been a Democrat rhino money laundering machine. Another right-wing conspiracy proved true. 2 days ago, suburban black man, no shame whatsoever. We need a full investigation into Ukraine funding. Secretary Anthony Blinken. Today, I'm announcing the delivery of $725 million in additional weapons and equipment for Ukraine's defense. The United States and more than 50 nations stand united with Ukraine. Well, where's the talk of peace? There's no talk of de-escalation. They just want to keep throwing money at it. Back in September of 2022, Zero Hedge posted this. Now, keep in mind, at the time, the U.S. has given $40 billion, no audit trail, no accountability, but this is Kyiv yesterday, so this would be September 4th of 2022. Yeah, dance parties going on in Kyiv. Is this, where's the war? Okay, now, of course, keep in mind, this is 2022, but still, the point is made. Peace, Richard says, peace in Ukraine could have been achieved if NATO expansion had been removed as an option. Now, I will place the blame of this entire war at the feet of NATO. By Ukraine saying we want to be a part of NATO, and Putin says, no, we don't want you to be a part of NATO. And that's the sticking point, I believe. These assertions that Vladimir Putin desires to conquer all of Europe are just fabricated BS lies to rationalize continuous funding. It's about the resources. Here's Mike Benz on Real America's Voice.
Giving billions in So I mentioned how after the 2014 coup, which is right when the pardon starts, we made this play to militarily reconquer the Donbass, which is where half of Burisma's mining rights and extraction rights are in Ukraine, the exact territory that had just been lost in the breakaway from the Donbass in 2014. The other half is offshore by Crimea, and which was the other half of what we lost in the 2014 counter-coup disaster. And so why did Trump get impeached in 2019? It was for threatening to withhold U.S. military aid. Well, hey, why were we giving billions in military aid to Ukraine before Ukraine was involved in a military war with Russia? It's because we were directing the full battering ram of the U.S. armed forces, as well as our diplomatic and statecraft and intelligence arms, to reconquer the Donbass, which is the territory where the resources of Burisma sit on, as well as the offshore resources of Crimea. So we were taxpayers were paying billions so that the Pentagon could militarily reconquer Burisma's mining resources and retain its mining rights, while you had all these U.S. companies like Chevron and Exxon, and you had Royal Dutch Shell from the UK side. You had Halliburton, which had billions of dollars in contracts with Naftagaz, the main feeder to Burisma. This is why Victoria Nuland, when she announced the coup in December 2013, she was standing in front of signs for Chevron and Exxon because they had partnerships with Naftagaz, the big Burisma feeder. So we paid. The story goes far beyond the Biden family. This is about U.S. foreign policy and what we're even doing in Ukraine in the first place. And the reason they want to bury this, and the pardon plays a big role in this, because the best way to actually collect evidence about something is through a criminal investigation. That's how you get the court-ordered subpoenas. That's how you get access to everyone's cell phones and emails and records. It's the kind of thing that you can really only do through the court system, at least to have any sort of enforcement on things. And so this Ukraine saga is going to be, so I mentioned.
It's about the resources. And speaking of resources, the Patriot Voice posting this back in October when an audience member asked Elon Musk about him being head of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, about American foreign aid funding for Ukraine and Israel. Elon gave the best response. Let's listen to Elon.
I think in general. So if you do choose to be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency?
Yeah,
Yeah. What do you think about we stopped giving money to other countries such as Israel, Ukraine, and we stopped funding forever wars that most likely is going to the deep state anyway?
Yeah. Well, I think in general the amount of waste that happens with the federal government is really staggering. It's a staggering amount of waste of taxpayer money. And if we're, for any given expenditure, we have to say, well, what does this do for the citizens of America? How is this good for the people of America? It's their money. Like, for some weird reason, a lot of people in the sort of, state or whatever, the politicians, they seem to forget that the money being spent is your money. And if it's not being spent in a way that is beneficial to the American people, it's a misuse of the funds.
Misuse of the American people's funds. What else have we got here? We've got, remember this? We gotta get to what Tucker Carlson's up to. But I bring this up because the last time Tucker was in Russia, there was an attack on his life, an assassination attempt. This man was apparently recruited by Ukraine to plant a bomb under his car in the hotel parking lot. Remember that? I remember reporting on it. And here's the device that was supposedly used to try to kill Tucker Carlson. $4,000 from Ukraine to assassinate Tucker Carlson. A man has just been arrested in Moscow, accused of being paid by Ukrainian intelligence to plant an explosive device on Carlson's vehicle. And now he's back. He is back in Moscow. Now, we played this the other day, but I want to play it again because it's very important. because he talks about what's actually happening on the ground that nobody's talking about.
Nuclear conflict. In the week since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February, after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He's now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel, launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing. And because of that war, because of the fact that the U.S. military is killing Russians in Russia right now, we are closer to nuclear war than at any time in history. Far closer than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That would mean the elimination of Russia, the United States, and most of the rest of the world. We felt there must be someone behind the scenes in Washington working to make sure that this conflict doesn't become a nuclear holocaust. But we found out that no, in fact, there is nobody. Tony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, cut off all contact between the U.S. and Russian governments. There is no back channel, there is no conversation, and there hasn't been for more than 2 years. That's shocking. Meanwhile, most Americans have no access to any perspective other than that granted to them by NBC News and the New York Times. They don't know how close we are. They don't know the Russian perspective. We've been trying for over a year to get that perspective out to American news consumers. We've also tried for over a year to get an interview with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. We've attacked that from a bunch of different angles. He's spoken to a lot of different people around him, had dinner with them. We've been in talks continuously, and those efforts have been thwarted by the U.S. government. The American embassy in Kiev, which our tax dollars pay for.
Oh, what happened? We lost it. That was weird. That's never happened before. Let's get back to what Tucker was saying.
Left Russia, Moscow, where we are for, told the Zelensky government, no, you may not do the interview. You can talk to CNN, you can't talk to us. So we've been unable to speak to him. So we came back to Moscow yesterday to interview the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, the longest serving foreign minister in the world. He's been a part of this government for 25 years. He's been in the diplomatic corps for over 40. And ask him, where exactly are we? Are we headed toward an unprecedented conflict between Russia and the United States? Is there any way to peel Russia back from the east, from the sphere of China, back into the west? Is that alliance permanent? And does the election of Donald Trump mean an end to this war, which is reshaping the world, the U.S. economy, the global economy, and risking the life of every person on this planet? Is that possible? We just walked out of that interview. It's absolutely fascinating. It's coming very soon. We hope you'll watch.
So with that being said, we got another clip here from Tucker Carlson on the street in Moscow, doing like a comparison. But I thought this guy here, this guy was published 15 hours ago, and he had a message for Tucker Carlson. You sit in Moscow with the elites while genocide happens.
2004. Good morning, my name is Richard Woodruff from Lviv, Ukraine. And I want to say to a Tucker Carlson, that real Americans stand with Ukraine. The real Americans have been here for 1,014 days. Real freedom-loving British and European citizens have been here for over 1,000 days, standing with the Ukrainians. And what do? You sit in Moscow, the powerful elite, sipping cocktails and champagne, laughing about the genocide of Ukrainians, right? That's exactly what you're doing right now. You have absolutely no idea, you fucking worthless man, and I'm glad all of humanity and all of history will know exactly what you have done. And people will look back at this genocidal invasion and say, Tucker Carlson, he was the one simping for the Russians, all for a little bit of that blood money. Hey, Tucker, fuck you. Good morning, my name is...
Pardon the language there, but he's missing the point. Tucker is trying to end it all. Tucker is trying to avert World War III and a thermonuclear war. Okay, he's there for humanity. I don't want to keep funding this thing anymore. I don't want to see people dying anymore. Trump doesn't want to see people dying anymore. Now I get this guy, he's got a personal stake there. He does, he's from Ukraine, so he's personally connected, and he sees it, and it's around him. But what's this, right? What's all this? What are we really being told about what's happening there? It's all got to end. It's got to end here. This just happened too. 14 hours ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin slamming a German speaker for asking him a question in English. You're representing the Federal Republic of Germany. You should speak German. Why are you asking me in English? Think about your sovereignty. Interesting choice of words.
You're representing the Federal Republic of Germany. You should speak German. Why are you asking me in English? Think about your sovereignty. Oh. Don't you have translation from German? Well, come on.
Interesting choice of words there. And while we have this, we have Joe Biden. He's over there in Africa, and he needs guidance on where to go, where to stand. Oh, don't watch your step there, Joe. Embarrassing us on the world stage. We've got another. I'm going to get to that clip of Tucker on the street in Moscow. But while all this is happening, Speaker Johnson has rejected the request for additional funding for Ukraine. And he's doing it. He's doing it because he wants to wait for Trump.
Last week, Biden administration requested to attach to upcoming CR additional aid to Ukraine, $24 billion. Do you planning to do that? What is your position?
I'm not planning to do that. There are developments by the hour in Ukraine. I think, as we predicted, and as I said to all of you, weeks before the election, if Donald Trump is elected, it will change the dynamic of the Russia war on Ukraine. And we're seeing that happen. So it is not the place of Joe Biden to make that decision now. We have a newly elected president, and we're going to wait and take the new commander-in-chief's direction on all of that. So I don't expect any Ukraine funding.
No Ukraine funding, clearly pointing out that Joe Biden is a lame duck as he falls asleep on the world stage. Literally.
The progress made on the development of the Lobito corridor and commend the visionary leadership that has brought this initiative to life. And it is through such partnerships and innovations.
Joe Biden sleeping on the world stage. I mean, he's about to fall over in his hand. Oh, yeah, you want that $1 billion? I better wake up. What an embarrassment. This is the lame duck commander-in-chief just phoning it in. Phoning it in right now. What's this? We've also got President Biden appears to fall asleep. Yes, we just saw that. This came after Biden pledged over $1 billion in aid to African displaced by droughts, as people in western North Carolina are living in tent cities. Right? Roger Stone posted this. This is interesting. And I'm waiting for some more developments on this. He says the CCP wired millions of dollars to certain conservative influencers in the United States through a Canadian bank in Ontario. Now, if you remember, there was Russia Today used some back channels to fund a group called Tenet Media, who then licensed, unbeknownst to Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and others, their content to be published on the Tenet Media YouTube channel. So this appears to be something similar from the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. I'm going to be tracking that. Very interesting that Roger Stone would be publishing that. I know he doesn't publish things lightly. Um, oh, and speaking of, man, these people are, I mean, Joy Reid, I don't even know how she can sleep at night with the stuff that she says. But listen to this.
We are seeing a global trend of the far right surging. It isn't just happening here. But let's bring you back to the U.S. and to our local gangster, Donald Trump. He's not even president yet, and he's already spending his time sitting in his golden palace, Mar-a-Lago, muscling other countries like he's Tony Soprano with a social media site. Doing things like, reportedly, debating whether or not to invade Mexico. Threatening BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with 100% tariffs if they don't commit to trading in dollars and not their own currencies. Demanding Hamas release all hostages being held in Gaza before his inauguration, or there will be, quote, all hell to pay in the Middle East. Even reportedly threatening Canada. According to Fox, when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to try to talk Trump out of his 25% tariff threat, Trump apparently suggested that if Canada can't handle the tariffs that would violate the NAFTA upgrade Trump himself signed into law, the USMCA, they should just become the 51st state. Just become the 51st state instead and allow Trudeau to be reduced to governor of the state of Canada, which caused...
It's a joke, Joy. It's a joke. They were ribbing each other. Trump derangement syndrome has severely infected Joy Reid.
Prime Minister and others to laugh nervously. And while some are writing that off as just a joke, just a few hours ago, Trump posted this obviously AI photo of him standing on a mountaintop next to the Canadian flag, looking off into the distance with the caption, "Oh, Canada."
He's trolling you. We do a little trolling, right? That's what he's doing. Because everyone's freaking out over his comments, and he's just feeding it, and you're just eating it up, Joy.
And for the record, he appears to be looking at the Matterhorn, which is on the border between Switzerland and Italy, not Canada. Oh, let's not forget, this is the same Donald Trump, who at one point seriously wanted to buy the nation of Greenland, even possibly trade it for Puerto Rico. I wonder what this guy has against Puerto Rico. I'll just keep noodling on it. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Bottom line, this is how Trump operates on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's boss, like he's the king of the world, which is bad news for basically everybody, unless your name is Vladimir Putin, the boss to Trump's underboss. Wow. The question now is, will any other leader stand up to him? And who? Who becomes the leader of the free world when Donald Trump ends Pax Americana as we know it?
Wow. See, she wants America to suffer and die. Do you hear what she just said?
Which is bad news for basically everybody, unless your name is Vladimir Putin, the boss to Trump's underboss. The question now is, will any other leader stand up to him? And who? Who becomes the leader of the free world?
She wants people to stand up to Trump. She doesn't want America first.
When Donald Trump ends Pax Americana as we know it. As Nicholas Grossman writes for The Bulwark, there is no undoing damage in history. It is up to those with power and influence to limit it now, and up to future generations to deal with it later. The post-Cold War international system has serious flaws, but at least there are clear enough rules that charges of hypocrisy mean something. Even rules more honored in the breach will be preferable to the lawlessness Trump's second term could invite.
Lawlessness. That's all we've been seeing under the Sleepy Joe Biden administration. Holy cow, man. Okay, so let's take a look at Tucker Carlson's comparison. He compares a subway in Moscow to those in America. Let's take a look at this now.
It's perfect, but it doesn't change the reality of what we saw, or more precisely, didn't see. There's no graffiti, there's no filth, there are no foul smells, there are no bums or drug addicts or rapists or people waiting to push you onto the train tracks and kill you. No.
No, you know why that's happening in the United States? Is because Democrat policies have enabled that behavior. Okay? They've empowered these people to do that. Giving out needles and I mean, making people beholden to government government handouts rather than being responsible for themselves.
It's perfectly clean and orderly. And how do you explain that? We're not even going to guess. That's not our job. We're only going to ask the question. And if your response is to shout at us slogans dumber than the slogans we used to call Soviet and mock, that's not really an answer. How does Russia, a country we're told is a gas station with nuclear weapons, have a subway station that normal people use to get to work and home every single day that's nicer than anything in our country? We're not going to speculate. We're just going to raise the question and wait for someone in charge to give us an answer.
Well, I just gave you an answer, Tucker.
What is the answer? So we'll stop the lecture and let you take a look for yourself at what the Kievskaya metro station in Moscow, Russia looks like today, February 2024, in the middle of a war. Here it is.
Okay. This is February 2024. Okay, I thought this was something that he had just done while he was there, but the point is the same. Now, I'm not trying to simp for Moscow. I'm not simping for Putin. But when you have a nation that is removing the Pledge of Allegiance from city councils, they're taking down the statues of our founding fathers, they're renaming military bases, you're destroying the national identity of the United States. And these people here in Russia, they have a sense of pride, and they maintain that national pride. In the United States, they are actively working to destroy the national pride. That's the difference. So, again, I'm not simping for Putin or Russia. I'm not trying to be an apologist here, but it's a compare and contrast. When you have cancerous Democrats and liberal policies and they're working to implement Marxism in the United States and destroying the fabric of our nation, that's when you end up having New York subways looking like toilet bowls. That's why. Because the policies and the pride, it's gone. You know? I mean, many nations all over the world have national pride. Mexico and Canada, they have national pride. But only in America are we trying to destroy our own national pride from within. But that's what I do here every day, is try to build up our country, build up our nation. That's what you and I have to do. That's our responsibility, to push back on these people, push back on these policies, to take the lunatics and put them back in the asylum so they don't trigger a thermonuclear war by continually funding the war in Ukraine and working against peace. But that's what they want. You got a president who can't even navigate stairs, falling asleep on the world stage. And again, here's Putin. He's asking that same question. And again, I'm not trying to be a Putin apologist here or a simp. I know some of the people who might be watching going, "Oh, Franchi, yeah, look at you." No, he's even bringing up a sense of pride for the German guy. Why are you talking to me in English? Right? Even Putin is telling the Germans to have a sense of national pride. But here in America, we tear down. We tear it all down. And we continually fund these wars that we need to stop. We have people like Joy Reid on MSNBC who are rooting for the demise of this country. This dying media, MSNBC, I sure hope to God that Elon Musk and Don Jr. and Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, I hope that they come together and they buy this out. And they give Joy Reid a new job. And her job should be cleaning the bathrooms. That's what Joy Reid's new job should be. And she can use Whoopi Goldberg's wig. Be a perfect mop. So, and then we have this. Okay? Russia firing hypersonic missiles in Mediterranean drills. So Russia is still flexing. This was 19 hours ago. Russia is still flexing on the world stage. The frigates successfully fired Zircon hypersonic missiles, successfully hitting their targets. The large-scale drill involved over 1,000 personnel, 10 ships, 24 aircraft, and advanced high-precision weapons. Hypersonic missiles. They're flexing. You want to keep spending more money? You want to keep throwing more money into Ukraine? They're going to keep flexing. They're going to keep issuing threats. And Tucker's going to keep going back there going, hey guys, can we try to get some cooler heads to prevail here? So we can, all wake up tomorrow and not be ashes in the wind. But then you got guys like this who are attacking Tucker. Again, he's got a stake. I understand. He's from Ukraine. He's got an issue. He's got a personal stake there. But see, the problem is he's a victim. He is a victim of the entire situation. From NATO expansionism to the ever-funding of the wars. Generates individuals like this. Who can't see the bigger picture that Tucker is trying to resolve. And that's why they want to kill Tucker Carlson. Because they want to keep that war machine funded. They want to keep that money going back, like Kari Lake said, going back into the Democrat piggy banks. Going back so that they can keep signing more missiles and signing more bombs. So that the Pennsylvania weapons manufacturers can keep those contracts running. That's what it is. That's what it all comes down to. And then you got this guy. God knows where he got these millions of US dollars in shoeboxes. But my guess, it's your money in his shoebox right there. Elon Musk, though, he's got a head on his shoulders. He's got the Doge. He's going to work it out. He's going to start cutting the fat. And, Speaker Johnson's like, no, we're not going to be paying. We're going to wait for Trump. Trump talking about lifting sanctions on Russia to achieve some peace in Ukraine. That is the key word. Peace. Peace, please. Can we have peace? We don't need Chinese hackers coming into our telecommunications systems. We don't need China withholding rare earth minerals that we need. We just want peace. We want trade. That's all we need, friends. Nothing more. But the war machine needs to continue. They need to keep scenes like this happening. People in the streets. But it's got to come to an end, folks. It's got to come to an end. We need to have peace. We don't need scenes of martial law like we saw in South Korea. Thank God it's over. We don't want scenes like this in our country either. But Secretary Blinken, $725 million in a blink of an eye. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. From China's strategic warfare to Russia's military flexing, one thing is clear: our enemies are coordinating while our leaders send billions overseas. Here's what we all need to be asking. Are we watching the deliberate dismantling of American sovereignty? Is this all part of their great reset agenda? Drop your analysis in the comments below. The world's watching, and your voice matters more than ever. While the global elites plot their next move, stand strong with our exclusive Mag Avengers collection at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Yeah, that shirt right there, it's got Elon Musk and Ron Paul on it. Grab a Next News hat. Wear it around with pride. Because each piece represents defiance against their destruction. A statement that Americans won't bow. Get yours now while supplies last.